So I want to talk to you guys today about arrogance. And so, first of all, what is arrogance? Arrogance is characterized by a sense of superiority, a lack of empathy, and a tendency to dismiss the opinions of others. Confidence, however, on the other hand, is characterized by a sense of self-assurance, a belief in one's abilities, and a willingness to take risk. So, have you ever known someone who is just arrogant? Now, I've done a video on confidence already. You can take a look back at that in one of my videos. But today we're going to talk about arrogance. And so, have you ever known someone who is just really an arrogant person? You know, somebody who is usually one of the telltale signs of an arrogant person is that they are extremely boastful. They do a lot of bragging. They talk a lot about themselves, their achievements, their abilities, and that sort of thing, right? People who are confident, who are just naturally confident in themselves and who genuinely know who they are, they don't usually boast or brag about their abilities or accomplishments. However, when you come into contact with an arrogant person, this person is usually going to be the one that you often will you'll get a sense of irritation and annoyance when you're in the presence of an arrogant person. Because a lot of times the conversation is usually just stemmed around themselves. And a lot of times when you're in these people's presence, you're going to hear a lot of I's and me's, right? And so usually their motive is to outshine or outdo you, one-up you in some sort of way, right? So that the spotlight and the attention and focus is always on themselves. And so, say for example, that you are dealing with an arrogant person, and their level of insecurity or their main area of insecurity is money. Typically, this person is going to always find a way to brag or boast about how much money they make, how well they do on their jobs, how well their spouses do on their jobs, and that sort of thing, if that is their area of insecurity. Because, again, one thing to note as well is that arrogance usually comes from an inner sense of insecurity. And so these people, they usually they don't lack any personal security within themselves. They don't know who they are. And so therefore this is where you find them to be arrogant, because it's always they have to go out of their way to show people and prove who they are. And often when someone has to go out of their way, that usually means that is usually not who they are. And that usually means that whatever they're going out of their way to try to prove to you, it's usually because they don't feel that way about themselves. So you really have to be mindful of that when you're dealing with an arrogant person. Arrogant people are often competitive in nature. And so a lot of times you're going to find that these are the types of people who like to compete with others because they don't know who they are. So they're usually trying to make sure they are ahead of you in some sort of way or on top of you in some sort of way. Usually very braggadocious, just usually trying to flaunt and show off how much money they have. Another thing, you are going to hear these people often calling other people broke. They may make comments like, just a whole lot of broke people around me, and that sort of thing. When in fact, and indeed, they're actually the broke people. And so you'll hear those types of comments. Arrogant people often have very foul, nasty demeanors and attitudes. And so these are usually going to be the mean girls or the mean guys, the guys who are always trying to make somebody else feel small. They usually are always trying to make someone else feel beneath them or below them. And so you'll pick that up when you're talking to these people. And a lot of times they have a lot of fans, and so usually the people who are around them, they usually like to keep a lot of people who possess really low self-esteem and self-worth around them, because those people don't know who they are. And so they like to keep people around them who kind of gas them up a lot, per se, who kind of are always boosting them up and complimenting them and kind of like falling over them and kind of oh my God, he's just the greatest, she's just the greatest, those types of people. They like to keep those type of people around them because it makes them feel good about themselves. It gives them an ego boost. And so they keep a lot of people around them who make them feel like they are God's gift to man. A lot of times arrogant people are also show-offs, and so you'll notice that they are always maybe posting pictures of expensive items. Maybe they are always mentioning the expensive items they just recently bought, or they're always talking about how much money they give to charities and orphanages and that sort of thing. You hear things like that. They're always, usually, often times, money is a big deal. Image is a big deal to these people. And so they may wear some, or try to, when they're around certain people, they may present themselves as really bougie, per se. And so when in fact, they're really not bougie people, but they have to give off the persona that they are to make themselves appear to be more higher end than others. Arrogant people usually have not done the work to get in connection with God to figure out who and whose they are. And so they're often seeking approval and validation from others for that reason. Unlike a person who's confident people, they don't need to seek approval or validation from others because they already are secure within who they are, and they already know who and whose they are. And so there's no need to seek validation or approval from anyone else when you are confident in who you are, right? But people who are arrogant, they lack these qualities. So because they don't know who they are and whose they are, they're always seeking validation and approval. And so this can get kind of sickening, because when you're around them, they may often be asking you questions like, do I look good? Am I pretty to you? Do you think that I'm good enough to do? Yeah, that can be a very unattractive trait. Lack of confidence is extremely unattractive. And so to all the arrogant people out there, it's just know that it's very unattractive, and people can see your insecurity from 20 miles away. Whether you know it or not, it's very visibly and easily seen. A lot of times arrogant people are competitive in nature, and so they love to compete with others. That goes back to the whole insecurity deal. When you are genuinely happy, content, and focused on your own success path, you don't need to compete with anyone else, because you don't have the time nor energy to do so. I once read a quote that said, I'm not going to go broke trying to prove I'm not broke to other broke people. And so a lot of arrogant people are typically always talking about money and how much they have, and flossing and flashing money and that sort of thing, braggadocious. They are usually often always trying to prove to other people that they're not broke. And so that's usually a dead red flag giveaway that you're dealing with a arrogant person, because a lot of times they're boasting about money, bragging about money, flashing money, and that'll be your telltale signs to show that they actually are very broke and don't have any money at all. Because people who have it, let's be honest, people who are truly wealthy, they never floss or flaunt it, because number one, they don't want people trying to contact them to get any of their money, their hard-earned money. And number two, they know that they can lose their lives. So pay attention to the signs of an arrogant person.